Welcome back, everyone. This brings us to the end of our section on how to design, implement, and manage a point-to-site VPN connection. Before we move on to the next section, let's once again review the main points that we covered and also go through another case study scenario. In this section, we started off with a high-level overview of point-to-site VPN concepts, in which we learned that a point-to-site VPN connection is effectively a network-to-computer or end-client private connection. In this lesson, we also covered the components of a point-to-site VPN solution on Azure, which include using the same VPN gateway as our site-to-site connections, assuming we are not using the basic SKU. And we also learned about the new components, which include a client address pool assigned to end clients, and also a tunnel type and authentication method, of which there are multiple options available. We also reviewed our previous points on network peering, in which, in the same manner as a site-to-site VPN connection, a point-to-site VPN connection to hop to a single peered virtual network, but not beyond that network. We then moved on to taking a closer look at the variety of different VPN authentication options, which include our three different tunnel types, which are OpenVPN, SSTP, which is Windows only, and IKE version 2. And we also covered our three authentication methods, which include an Azure certificate, Azure AD, and a Radius server. Once again, it will be an exam objective to know which combinations of tunnel types and authentication methods work together, and also which operating systems they are compatible with as well. We then moved on to a quick lesson on how to troubleshoot point-to-site VPN connectivity, which had a few separate points to consider. One of which is that from a troubleshooting perspective, you need to be sure that your protocol or tunnel type and your operating system and your authentication method all match up together. We also discussed a scenario in which we need to communicate with a newly peered network with an existing point-to-site VPN configuration, in which we learned we must re-download our VPN configuration to all of our endpoints after that new network has been peered in order for our endpoints to communicate with that newly peered virtual network. And we also talked about diagnostic logs from both the Azure side and also specifically an Azure VPN end client, in which from the Azure side, we discussed that the P2S diagnostic log type handles logs for our point-to-site VPN connections. And when talking about the Azure VPN client, it comes with a diagnostic suite built into it, which is able to perform a variety of diagnostic tests. Moving on, let's once again visit our favorite fictional bakery of Control-Alt suites and go through a new scenario. This is going to be a fun one in which I'm going to ask you to pause after the introduction to decide what we should best do. So in our scenario with Control-Alt suites, they have a need to securely connect multiple remote users to Azure virtual networks. Now, their profile is very important. First of all, let's talk about their company infrastructure. Control-Alt suites is exclusively a Microsoft 365 organization, and they have no current on-premises AD infrastructure in their environment. The profiles of their connecting users is as follows. They need to be able to connect from multiple operating systems, which include Windows, Macs, Linux desktop operating systems, and also mobile tablets, which are a mix of iOS and Android tablets. They also require an open standard protocol for connection purposes. Based on this profile, which authentication method and tunnel type do you think Control-Alt suites should choose for their point-to-site VPN solution? Go ahead and pause this video for a second, and once you think you know the answer, go ahead and unpause, and let's go ahead and find out. So looking at the solution for our scenario, when it comes to authentication method, based on our profile, we are going to want to use a certificate-based authentication method. We came to this conclusion for two reasons. First, we realized that there is no existing Active Directory server, which means there is no current Radius server option, unless we wanted to spin one up from scratch, which really isn't recommended. Also, since we need to connect over both Linux and mobile tablets, Azure AD is also not an available authentication method because they do not support Linux or mobile operating systems. When it comes to the tunnel type or the protocol that we want to use, OpenVPN is our best choice because, number one, it is an open standard, which is one of our requirements, and it has the widest compatibility available, which includes compatibility with all of our different operating systems. With that, it's going to go ahead and bring us to the end of our section on point-to-site VPN connectivity. Let's now go ahead and move on to the next one.